Welcome to the Innovation Ecosystem Podcast. We interview remarkable and thought-provoking guests about innovation, leadership, and change in the world of business. Whether you're an executive or an entrepreneur, our objective is to help you and your organisation create an entrepreneurial culture, become more innovative, and better able to respond to change. Each week, we'll deconstruct world-class performance from the arenas of business, academia, science, and sports. Each week, you can expect key insights, fresh perspectives, and proven tools you can use straight away to make you more successful professionally and personally. With your host, Mark Bidwell.
Hello, this is Mark Bidwell. Welcome back to the last episode of the second season of the Innovation Ecosystem Podcast. With me for this final show of the second season is Elmar Mock, the original creator of the Swatch watch back in the mid-80s, who's gone on to write a book more recently called The Innovation Factory, as well as create an innovation consulting firm called Creaholic. Now, there's plenty in here, and you might remember that the first episode of this season with James Briding, we actually referred to the Swatch success story, and we referred to Elmar Mock. He was the guy who was there ground zero as a young inventor back in the mid-80s. So, some of the things that I really took away, which are particularly interesting, is, his experience and his frustrations as that young inventor in what was a dying industry, and the unique mindset that he employed, which enabled him to turn around the company and the industry with the Swatch. And it's worth remembering, this was way before the Apple iPhone was launched. There were enormous queues when the Swatch was first launched back in the US. Secondly, the way that he uses examples from the natural world to highlight the diverse approaches to innovation, change, and creation, which is very fresh and is very different and very unique. And thirdly, he gives some very constructive advice for those of us who are pushing for change, both within ourselves, within the organizations that we work for, and also society at large. So plenty in here. And if you like this material, suggest you hop over to innovationecosystem.com, where you can join thousands of other business leaders to access resources, tools, and insights to help you innovate your organization and yourselves and help yourself become more entrepreneurial. So without further ado, welcome to Elmar Mock. This is Mark Bidwell, founder of the Innovation Ecosystem. Welcome to the show. I'm very pleased to have with me Elmar Mock, who is founder of Creaholic and inventor of the Swatch. Welcome to the show, Elmar.
Thank you.
So let's just start. Who is Elmar Mock? For those in the audience who haven't heard of you or come across you, how would you answer that question?
So I would say I'm a serial inventor. I'm active in breakthrough innovation for the last 40 years. But basically, at the origin, I am an engineer.
You're an engineer, and you're based in Switzerland, about an hour south of where we are in Basel at the moment.
Exactly, in Bienne.
In Bienne, super. Now, Elmar, I'd like just to start with the Swatch story, for which is defined in many respects your career. Back in the mid-1980s, you were, by your own description, a frustrated 26-year-old working in a declining industry, the Swatch, the Swiss watch industry. Can you tell us a little bit about why were you frustrated, and what was your role? Just paint a picture of what was going on back then.
So you must imagine I was learning such a professional, workless guy, because I decided to make watch engineer. At that time, watch industry was going very bad. It was a very sad time. I received a job by pure coincidence, I will say. It was more, they was supporting young engineers, so I was not really have a clear target, a clear work. It was a very fascinating time, because on one hand, as young engineer, you want to do something and suddenly you don't know what to do. And the art of innovation is to using this time to try to find other way. My second frustration was I was like boys. I love game and playing and have new machine. So I was looking for a super new machine. And I was asking for such an investment without to have any reason. Mm-hmm. And that provoked that the general director asked me to come in his office, and I have to save my ass. So I try not to explain why I want to play, but I propose him how a technology could change the view of a watch. And I was very surprised, because he was open for that idea, and I was supporting from my big boss. It was Ernst Tomke. And so he gave me the freedom to start at this development to give at the end the Swatch.
So this was, I mean, the context here is very interesting. I mean, the company was struggling, the industry was struggling, and yet you went in and asked for 500,000 francs or dollars, a sizable amount of money back then. And I think you said that if they'd have said no, you might well have been shown the door and been on the street looking for a job. So, I mean, how did you feel as you made that pitch? I mean, it was obviously a very compelling pitch.
I was in a terrible stress situation. It was 11 o'clock. And 2 hours later, my boss asked to come in his office. So I have exactly 2 hours to propose something. And so I had no market study, no customer journey, nothing. I was simply in a situation that I was forced to explain him my think about the last 2 years, how watch industry could be different and why I want to have this kind of technology. So I have to go back to the roots and not to I would say, theoretical explanation and marketing stuff. I also explained him why this kind of technique could change our view about what we think is a watch. And I was very stressed, and the first half hours was terrible. So he was asking me if I'm crazy, he was not asking why I want to have a machine, but he was simply claiming that I have no realism and I don't understand the situation of our company. So he was trying to explain me that I cannot ask things like that. And at the end, he asked me the question, why do you want such a machine? And I had the chance to pitch in maybe 30 seconds. The reason. And
what did you say? What did you say in those 30 seconds?
I make sketches. I make with my friend Jacques Muller a sketch in 1 hour, like kids' sketches on millimeter paper, explaining how could look such a product without to claim that we want to do it. Simply to explain that we can change. And the surprise was that the boss was looking. And what I was always surprised the last years when I was working with the industry, the real owner or those who have the responsibility of the long term want to see something different. It's normally the middle management and the organization who try to kill everything which is not in the tradition.
Interesting. I mean, that's a hugely important insight, I guess, as you go out and work with organizations today, as to, are these client organizations actually serious about this or not? I mean, that was obviously a very, very powerful lesson all those years ago. It's a big difficulty how you go to a client, why the client would want to change. Now, the normal organization is focused on renovation, making what is today difficult possible tomorrow morning. And the target of innovation is to make the impossible possible. Is how can we imagine something will happen in 1 week or in 1 month and not tomorrow morning? And it's a stress in the organization because on one hand, you have to save agility, you have to save your actual customer, you have to give an answer to the request from today. But this is renovation. It's not innovation. And so back then, I mean, the innovation there, if I get it right, was to create a cheap, high quality product, which was very, and very, very quickly as well in the context of the declining industry. So it certainly wasn't a renovation. It was an enormous innovation, is what you were proposing, right?
Yeah, but we was trying to change the view how you see a watch. Normally, a watch is in reality a mechanical movement, a quite complex mechanical life was packed in a case. And what we proposed was to change this view and to modify the way how we can imagine to make a watch, and using injection molding, using polymer material to have the possibility to reduce drastically the number of pieces and drastically the costs, and to keep high quality. But we had no clue at that moment exactly how to do. We wasn't simply claiming, look, with this kind of thing, we could imagine. And every normal engineer, every normal watchmaker at that time, we simply say, forget it. It's impossible.
So as you said, you were very stressed in the meeting, but I should imagine when he said, yes, go off and do it, here's the money, your stress levels didn't decline because then you had to go off and do something about it, right?
Out of the meeting, I don't know clue if I was successful or not. I go back to my friend with the feeling we will be kicked off out of the company in the coming month. So I don't have had any positive feeling after the meeting. And the surprise was that the director of development, where I never met before because I was so low in the hierarchy, he came to us and I said, "Are you crazy to go to the big boss with a project that was never discussed, with something which is impossible? We don't know about it. Are you crazy? It's not a drawing. It's a kid's thing. And okay, you want to play, you want to laugh. Okay, you have exactly 6 months. All the other projects are stopped, and now prove what you are discussing." So he challenged us in a quite negative point, saying, probably, if you're not able, you quit the company. And my friend and me, we lose all our actual project. We was alone, and everyone was taking distance to us. Because at that time, we had fired 4,000 people in 4 years.
Wow. And
every month, people was firing. And so the risk was very high, and everyone was thinking, oh, if we work with these two guys, we will lose our job. And so we was totally alone. And that was a big chance, because if you have too many, a too big group, it's difficult to move fast. And we received the support for the top management. And so it was incredible power to go ahead as fast as possible.
And over those 2 years, I mean, obviously, we haven't got the time to go through the details, but I mean, I would imagine a lot of the methodologies that you developed and your approaches form the basis of your, how you go about doing this kind of work since then for Creaholic. Is that fair to say?
It's half fair. Basically, we was reacting very naturally. And the very natural instinct for innovator is to move in a non-linear way, to go from concept to know-how back to concept, to request your concept, to look for new know-how, to change the concept again. And that is a very natural phenomenon who is existing by Edison, who was existing for 2,000 years ago, but who was described theoretically only in the 1890s. It was described under the name CK theory. The reason why I write a book using the Swatch examples to show how it is, because the big problem of an organization is used to have a linear process with milestone, target, budget, time schedule. What is absolutely correct if you want to go fast, to modify something what you know how to do. But if you don't know what you want and you don't know how to do, this linear process goes to a dead end.
Yep.
So you have to have another kind of process. And this process is a very natural process by artists, very natural by creative people, very natural by inventors, but it's not understood for organization. And so what is important in the organization, to understand that the process is different, but it is a process. It's a non-linear one, and the dance is not to transmit a dossier for one department to another department. It's have a team who is working in a mental situation of conceptual work and in a research for the solution what you don't know out of your field, not trying to drill deeper in what you know, but try to discover how the other has solved that kind of problematic in the past, or how the nature has solved this kind of problematic, or how artists have solved this kind of problematic. So looking at a totally different way and trying to find your way. I would say innovation is like a labyrinth with a lot of potential exit. And you don't know which one is the right one.
And lots of impasses as well, I would imagine, as well.
It's a lot of dead end, but a lot of possibility. And you know what you start to do, but you don't know where you end it. And to reach a target is not to reach the point you define at the beginning. Is to reach the right exit who can bring you to success.
So let's talk about this. Let's just wrap up the Swatch story now, and then we can get back into that. But I mean, the end point of this. I mean, many people will know the story. But can you just characterize? I mean, how did the project end from your perspective?
Absolutely different. For me, it's a missed success. If you see the target we had was to increase our market presence increase our market shares in a development market of watches, and proposing Swiss product, high quality product, low cost.
Yep.
What
and
we
you had
make at the end,
5 million sales, I think you had, and you thought the product would last for 5 years. Is that correct?
that was our target.
Yeah.
We were thinking that probably after 5 years, the product will disappear and we will make maximum 5 million sales.
But something else happened, didn't it?
No, it would not happen like that. It's more than 600 million. It's now for more than 30 years on the market. That was not expected.
600 million units, 30 years on the market, and what, $7 or $8 billion of earnings for the Swatch Group, something like that?
Something like 7 to 8 billion benefit, I would say, cash flow.
Yeah, and transformed the watch industry. I mean, reversed what was many people were saying was a terminal decline, right?
I'm not sure. No, I think it was a perverse situation. In reality, I'm totally surprised that Swatch still exists, because it's a technology fossil. It's an old story. Yep. It's still good, but why they never have tried to go more in that direction? They was going in exactly in the reverse direction. The two-day watch industry in Switzerland is a luxury industry. Yep. Yep. Very high price, very, very complex mechanics, and more mechanic system. I'm not sure that's the right way for the future. And what we were trying to do is not what the watch industry is doing today. Mm-hmm. So the name watch has changed. Maybe the money has give power to redevelop other story. Yep. But for me, it's a dead end.
And I think you appeared on CNN. You were interviewed after the launch of the Apple Watch, and you raised some questions about what that would do. About how the Swiss industry should be responding to that kind of threat.
Yeah, I'm not in charge of the Swiss watch industry. I can only observe as inventors. I will say the world has changed fundamentally. The world in the 20th century was a world organized around coordination. You had an agenda, a time schedule, and I would say the rhythm of the day was prepared. It was written down. And the new story was introduced by Nokia, end of the 90s, was connecting people. Mm-hmm. And this ability to connect people make that you have today jazz music. You move slightly your appointment. You change maybe the place you are going. You adapt yourself. And that make that you cannot anymore consider that time is the only reference for the organization of a day. Communication and time are collaborated. Of course, you still have a certain level of organization, but the communication has introduced a new flexibility. And so the modern smartphone for me are the pocket watch for the 19th century. Mm-hmm. And it was taking a certain time that wrist watch replaced pocket watch. It was middle of the 1930s, so it was more than 30 years was needed to change the habit. And for me, the target is to have more elegance and to reduce the need to take out your very heavy smartphone out of your pocket or your computer. Mm-hmm. And you want to have something more flexible. And this is clearly coming. And for me, it's a new way to have an instrument who helps you to organize your day, because the watch is not a luxury product. Yeah. It's not a time, it doesn't give you the time. It's help you to organize your day and to be as efficient as possible. And to imagine that this is free of connection is for me
ludicrous,
non-objective.
Yeah, absolutely. So you then left. You did some more work in the Swiss watch industry. I think you founded the Rock Watch, and then you founded Creaholic. Can you just say a little bit about the name, and then what do you say to people about what does Creaholic do? But let's start with the name of the organization.
The name Creaholic is to say you must be a holic to go in that direction. So it's a passion problematic. It's a positive holic. Mm-hmm. It's not a negative
alcoholic
one.
Or a sexaholic.
No. It's a positive holic, because I think you must be fascinated and you must be engaged totally in what you are doing. And this is a positive addiction. And the positive addiction is to be sure that you are able to make that that the day after tomorrow can be different than today. And this addiction is positive. So it's why I use this name. But of course, creativity is not innovation. That is maybe the mistake I did at that time. So creativity is only the first phase, because innovation is bringing birth, and creativity, I would say, is making love.
Yeah, the procreation.
And so you have to go to the reality, and the really difficult problematic is not having idea. The difficult problematic is bringing thing to life.
Yep. So this is excellent, because you're in Switzerland, as I am. You work with a lot of global leaders that many of our listeners would be familiar with. Companies like Nestle, companies like Tetra Pak, who are, they're dominant in their industries. They've redefined in many respects their entire segments. Now, how easy is it, based on your experience, to actually drive innovation in these organizations? I mean, I look at Tetra Pak. I mean, their core technology was founded in the 60s and the 70s. I mean, is it realistic for large, established incumbents that enjoy lots of market share in their organizations? Is it realistic for them to transform themselves through the kind of innovation that you've experienced?
No, nothing is easy. But in life, nothing is easy. Mm-hmm. I will say we have sometimes people are using complex image. I will use a very simple one. If you are in a competition, what do you want to be? The Olympic champion or pregnant? Mm-hmm. So bringing life, making a new product, is be in pregnancy, is trying to find a way. It's take energy and it's reduce your agility. Now, most of the company are organized on short term and look for agility and want to be Olympic champion, but how to be pregnant in 8 months and be Olympic champion. So the mammal example is an excellent example how life has a contradiction, how to survive in a short time and how to give life in a long time. So most organizations are focused on short time, surviving and agility and success, what is very important, and never lose that.
But is that true Elmar, is that true for the non-public companies, of which there are a number in Switzerland that are, like Tetra Pak, which don't necessarily have the burdens of reporting to Wall Street or shareholders? Do you think that all organizations tend to be far too short-term in your mind?
No, but I want to explain. I was not going to the end of my explanation. Life is not only mammal. So mammal is one example, but you have frogs, and frogs, per example, make 1,000 eggs and only one survive for 1,000. But you have birth. And I think in Europe, we have used mostly the birth example, how birds are living. It's incredible. Birds have fantastic killing machine. They can fly. They can eat mosquito by flying. They are agile. But they have to survive, and they never fly with eggs. Mm-hmm. They separate totally the activity of innovation and the activity of agility. And so this is an excellent way how nature can show us solution. I would say the US example was mammal making baby in glass. So startup are nothing more than in vitro life. Mm-hmm. But startup model go for the principle that mammal female will adopt this young baby who was growing in glass. Yeah. And the startup market depend on the adoption of big company on small startup. That is one model. Mm-hmm. But in Europe, it's much more difficult to accept another culture. It's much more difficult to accept a change. But I think in US, in traditional industry, is as difficult as in Europe. So the example of Swatch, the example of Nestle is nesting. Mm-hmm. Nespresso was a nesting. Do you think that Nescafe was open to a Nespresso? No. Yeah. They were trying to kill this idea.
Well, it wasn't allowed in the boardroom for many years as well, even though it was successful, right? The machine weren't allowed.
But it was decided for the top of the company, and they give energy, and they decide to allow this life. Exactly that in Swatch, it was decided by the top of the company, all the organization again. Please don't forget that. To have a baby, first, the brain wants to have a baby. So the most important sex organ of a mammal is the brain of the female. Mm-hmm. If she don't want, she will not have. The second element, of course, you need ability to grow life. But the antibody, the rest of the body of the female want to kill what is not exactly in the genetics. And so the big problem of all organizations, small and large, is the people in place. They want to save the man, and they want to don't accept a foreign genetics, and a new idea is always a foreign genetics. And so you have different way, and I think nesting is an incredible potential with not enough explained. And we live in Creaholic for the last 30 years in this nesting idea, because we are living in a country and in a continent with much more open for nesting than for adoption.
Yeah. And which companies do you see out there that are doing this really well?
So we give some examples, but I think you have famous examples. For example, 3M was excellent. You had people like I think for a certain time being, I don't have the actual situation, but DuPont was also making excellent nesting. You had some people like Nestlé was making excellent nesting. So they have several examples. So I'm not a professor. I'm not studying the rest of the industry. I'm working with company making that, and I can say you that I have several examples with my client that nesting can function. But for that, you need not the adoption of the middle management. You need adoption of the top management, and you need a way of collaboration, of coexistence, because it's not by changing all the actual organization in the innovative organization that you will change things, because you have to be agile. You have to survive in the short term. So you have the complexity that you have to live in parallel with both, but you have to organize the system a different way, and you have a different way of I would say the process acceptance must be different, but the pressure must exist.
So if you were, what advice would you have? I mean, a lot of our listeners, we have executives and we have people leading innovation programs, trying to grow their top line because of the short term demands that they're under. But we also have what I'd call intrapreneurs, so more maybe from the millennial generation who are in these large organizations wrestling with, I mean, maybe frustrated as you were back in the mid-'80s, wrestling with how can they actually make a difference and how can they have an impact beyond their job description. What kind of advice would you have for those individuals based on your experience back then, but also what you see getting in the way of people's efforts?
Okay, so I would say maybe I would start with the word entrepreneur. I like the name of one sense, but I hate the title because entrepreneur is like to be a saint. It's post-mortem. Yeah. You are not have the target, it's a result. And money is not a target, it's a result. So the focus should be what is the disturbing factor? What disturbs the society? What will change tomorrow? How can I go in a direction that I can give something positive for the client of my client, for the user? You want to make something positive for the user because fun, pleasure is based on solving problems, solving solutions, proposing something, making life better, easier, more comfortable. And if you focus on entrepreneuriat, I want to organize, I want to be a boss, I want to have money, it's the wrong direction.
But for someone with energy around wanting to make a difference from within a large organization, what I mean, irrespective of the language we use, but people who actually do want to, to use to put a dent in the universe.
Very simple. Never do what you don't trust yourself deeply. Don't forget that you have only 5 bullets in your gun. You can only 5 times in your life try to change something seriously, because to make a real project needs 5 to 10 years until it's successful. So you cannot shoot every day. You have to be deeply convinced yourself. Secondly, you have to convince other people. If you are not able to convince others, it's the proof that maybe your idea is not so good. And you must accept that maybe your idea was not so good and request it to you, because you must really go in the project when you are convinced that you are in the right direction, and you can convince other one. And you must take a risk. What is taking a risk? It's not only the risk of money. It's risking 10 years of your life. It's risking your career. It's risking yourself. Are you ready to spend 20% of your potential life energy in this idea. And if you are not, don't do.
Yeah.
And if you are, do it.
Wonderful. And you mentioned, I mean, you know, 5 bullets. Obviously, just interested in what were your other bullets? I mean, Swatch obviously was a great bullet, very exciting. What other bullets have you had?
I was a very lucky man. I maybe have 10 in my gun per coincidence, but I don't have one-handed. So Swatch was an example, Rockwatch was an example, but Creaholic is my most important baby. I'm much more proud for Creaholic than from Swatch, for example, because it's how to organize creative people, how to reduce the feeling of injustice in a team, how to bring a team to repeat innovation. And today the team was working. So a part of the bullet are team's bullet today. And as team, we have more bullets. So the organization is not to play alone, it's to use the other. And for example, we make solutions like how we can weld bone, how we can weld wood, how can we make micro engine, how can we save water, how can we recover energy. And there are several projects you can find if you go in creaholic.com. You will find a lot of examples. They are not all my own baby, but I will say they are baby of my friends. And I hope I was helping in that. But, you know, myself, I know that the next 5 years, I will be focused on one main project with Josa, with a new kind of showering, a new kind of saving water, a new kind of bringing luxury. And that is my personal, next challenge. Maybe my last one, because at my age, I cannot change it. I have always the feeling I'm young. It's not the case.
Well, they say you're only old when you have more regrets than dreams, and it sounds like you've got a lot of dreams left in you.
I still have a lot of dreams, yes.
Yeah. So this is excellent. I'm just going to begin to wrap up. This is Mark Bidwell on the innovation ecosystem. I've got Elmar Mock with me. Elmar, you touched on what you're excited about today, which is your new project. We'll put all of these in the show notes for the for our listeners. Where can people get in touch with you? Before we cover the last 3 questions, where can people get in touch with you?
So very easy. My mail is elmar@creaholic.com. And if you go by creaholic.com, you will find my team, you will find myself, and my life is around Creaholic.
Super. And you also run events in, I saw you had a great event in Geneva a few weeks ago. But we'll maybe put, if there's anyone listening who's in the area and there's some upcoming events.
I make keynote, I make workshops. I try to introduce, I make a book about innovation. So innovation factories in English, in German and in French. So it will come soon in Chinese. And I make keynotes to try to explain more deeply. And I make workshop to feel a little bit, because a workshop is only a small moment. It's trying to discover how it can go. Yep. But in reality, you don't solve problem in a short time. You don't have idea in a short time. It's always work. And we work together. So we are, as Team Creaholic, working for company, working for people. And that is our main target. But we change always. We always move around, and we discover a lot of new field. And that is the power of innovation. It's not drilling deeper in what you know. It's discovering what you don't know. And that makes the life so fantastic, and is so a passion to discover what you can imagine, what you was not knowing before.
Yeah. And your passion comes through on these interviews, and we'll put all these materials in the show notes. So I sent to you, Elmar, 3 questions before we met today. First question: what have you changed your mind about recently?
So my mind is never first crystallized. But what is interesting is your mind have an evolution, and you change due to display. You change concept, you think differently, and you move progressively. You don't go back. Your life need never going back. You go forward. And by going forward, you change slightly. So you don't make not big change, but you change your mind automatically. And my mind is really that today a team is not only a technocratic, is technosophic. And if you don't have an idea about, I would say, dreams, what is maybe more art is so important. But if you don't understand business, long term, you have no chance. And you have to make an evolution in the acts of art dream, in the art of technosophy, what is not technocracy, is the fascination of the other way of solving things, but also why do people have a reason to exchange things together? What is business? Business is simply exchanging between humans, helping the other one. And so I move always in this area, and I hope I increase my understanding the last years. And so automatically I changed my mind, but it's not 90-degree movement.
Okay.
The force is to have a certain direction and to change, but in what you think is the right way to go.
Okay.
And you don't know the end of I explain you, it's a labyrinth.
Yes.
And it's a labyrinth. You go back but you go forward still, because you try to find another exit and you try to find the right exit. But you don't change fundamentally the main target.
Yep. Okay. Second question, what do you do to remain creative and innovative? I mean, where do you get your life force to continue to be so passionate about the subject?
It's very strange. I like television. I like to discover the world. I like to travel. I like to discover people. I like to have no stability. I am in reality a nomad. My house is not built. I'm moving and try to find better grass for my animals. So I don't know what will be tomorrow, and I enjoy every new discover.
Okay, so it sounds like you're very, very comfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty.
Yes, probably it's due to my nature. It's like that. So I'm not looking for stability. I'm looking for discovering new and have a lot of pleasure. I'm very strange, probably a strange guy.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of people we interviewed in the first series, point to diversity of relationships, of experience, of thinking, of mental models to stimulate their creativity and their innovation engine, if you like. So it's this innate curiosity, I guess, is how I'd characterize it.
Curiosity is the key word.
Yeah. Okay. Third question.
Maybe you can explain that I am very dyslexic from baby. So I use 11 years to make 9 years school. I repeat twice as class. I was such a bad student because for me, it was impossible to understand what is correct and not correct. And in reality, it was an advantage at the end. It's an handicap at the beginning, but to don't know what is right, make that you accept that your mind, what you think is maybe not correct. And you try to adapt you to the reality. So this half-blind situation is a help. So you have to touch, you have to feel, you have to be convinced yourself to agree about something. And this handicap has probably forged my mentality.
Yep. Okay. Third question, to what would you attribute your success in life?
Oh, I have success. I don't know. Success is not money. Success is really, I go every day to work with pleasure, and I was able to find way, and I have a team and I have a group, family member, basically. And my family is important in all sense of the name family.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm struck by the Warren Buffett title of his book, Tap Dancing to Work, which might apply to you.
Yeah, in German, we say understanding is keep in your hand, is begreifen, is take a glass in your hand, touch the thing, experiment, discover yourself. Don't trust the other one. Ask you questions and enjoy everything you can find who surprise you. Look for the surprise, and there are surprises everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's good advice. Good advice. Well, Elmar, it's been a great pleasure having you on the show today. I'm sure our audience enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Mark again. Plenty in there. A few takeaways for me. I mean, the importance of non-linear thinking to solve seemingly impossible problems within organizations. The fact that there can't be change or innovation without some element of pressure, whether it's from within you or from outside. And thirdly, the importance of being really committed to an idea, being willing to commit 5 years to a project to see it through. So never do something that you don't personally trust very, very deeply that it's the right thing to do. So, we need to convince ourselves first before we can convince others. So I hope you enjoyed this second season. Looking forward to you joining in the third season. But if you haven't listened to some of our previous episodes, I do urge you to hop over to innovationecosystem.com and have a listen to some of our remarkable guests. It's been a great pleasure wrapping up this year. We all learned a huge amount. I certainly have. And those of us who are able to find time to listen to some of these materials have validated that. So many thanks for your support. And until the beginning of the third season, have a great break.